Well, if you're enjoying this high-quality program on television, good chance it's coal that is powering the electrics that's going to your set. To talk about it from the PUC, former PUC chairman here from Colorado, Ray Gifford. Good to see you again. It's been a while.
Good to see you, John.
All right, I want to ask you about the EPA. Our president wants us to be cleaner, and therefore the EPA is going to have a lot more regulation on coal-producing power plants. I'm going to say to snuff them out because there's a war on coal, but you can be more diplomatic. What did the president do?
So on Monday, the EPA announced in a Rose Garden ceremony with the president that the Clean Power Plan, the rule that's going to regulate carbon dioxide emissions from existing and new power plants, was released. And what the rule aims to do is reduce the nation's carbon footprint from electric generation by, as it ends up, 32% by 2030.
That's 14 years from now.
Correct.
All right, so this is a short amount of time.
Yes.
All right, so 37% of our power that is going to have to be changed over to something renewable, correct?
Yeah, well, who wins from this is the renewable industry, and there will be, if this rule ever goes into effect, if it passes the legal challenges that are inevitable, you will have a lot more renewable energy on the grid and a lot less coal-fired energy.
That sounds spectacular. This is good stuff. It's cleaner, and we're going to be replaced. It's good. There'll be some transition costs for sure. I tell you what, let's assume that we love this idea, all right, that this is a good idea. How the hell does the president use regulatory power to make such a massive change? And this is something where he said, I'm going to use my pen, I'm going to use my telephone. If Congress is not with me, I'm going to do this anyway. And I think a lot of people who want to see more renewables are cheering this, but I'm wondering if they step back, if they really want to give any president this kind of power. Does he have the authority to do this, in your opinion?
It is, shall we say, the outer boundaries of the EPA's authority and probably exceeds them. The question, and you've seen this issue be played out again and again, is the discretion and the power that administrative agencies in this country have is quite enormous. The EPA has been laying the groundwork for this rule since 2007, when the Supreme Court said that the Clean Air Act allowed them to regulate carbon dioxide. And this rule is now going final, and there will be at least 15 states are going to sue within the next month, I'm sure, to stop the rule.
Is Colorado going to be one of those states? I know you can't speak for the AG, but you're the former chairman of the PUC. I have a sense that Colorado could be one of these lawsuits.
Well, I know that Attorney General Kaufman is considering it. I think that there are essentially what happens under this rule, and that may help set the stage to describe kind of the political dynamics, is the states that now have the lowest cost electricity, their electricity is going to become much more expensive because they're going to have to transition from their lower cost coal resources to higher cost.
And people might not know that. Let me jump in. Coal is very inexpensive, very reliable, and the cost doesn't fluctuate. I mean, this is why coal is 80 to 70% of our portfolio, right? I mean, this is America's power source.
Correct. And historically, and particularly really starting in the 1970s, ironically enough, a bunch of Democratic governors in the West pushed to use increasing amounts of coal. Governor Lamb here was a big coal booster. And because we have about a century's plus worth of it sitting mainly up in the Powder River Basin in Wyoming and Montana, it's domestic, it is low cost, and it runs power plants quite reliably. What it also does is emit more carbon dioxide than alternative sources of energy. Natural gas emits about half as much carbon dioxide as coal, and of course solar and wind do not, at least on the generation side.
Nor does nuclear or
Correct.
hydro, but those aren't polite. Let me take it from a different tack for a second. Assume somebody loves the idea of where this ends.
Yep.
Why should they be bothered by the means? What, I mean, talk to somebody who buys onto this, that this is a necessary thing. What would you say to change their mind that the means that this is happening is dangerous?
Well, I think I'd say a couple things, which is one, EPA is now becoming the power planner for the United States, which is a capacity they've never had. The states, the Colorado Public Utilities Commission, the rural electric co-ops, the municipal power agencies have made those resource decisions. For the most part, we have a wonderfully run, wonderfully functioning electric grid in this country. And now what we're overlaying it is the EPA is going to take over the planning function for it, using a very obscure part of the Clean Air Act that has rarely been used since its passage in 1972. It is going to cause enormous dislocation of the current governance processes and planning processes that we use. It is going to cause enormous increases, very disproportionately arrayed across the states. So states that have a lot of coal-fired electricity are going to have rates go up significantly. States like California that already have expensive electricity doesn't have that far to go under this.
So basically you're saying, the way we have it now, Colorado controls Colorado's energy policy. We're going to sacrifice that to DC. We have one of the highest mandates for renewables. We don't need to worry about that anymore because DC is going to take care of that. And when you were on the PUC board, people would come to you and scream, I want you to do this or you can't do that. Instead of talking to you, why even bother talking to you? We'll just go out to DC and they'll start making all those decisions. And what one president giveth, another president might taketh away through the same regulations.
Yeah, part of what's happening here is a nationwide renewable energy portfolio standard or mandate is going to be placed on the states. We are going to add enormous amounts, at least what the rule contemplates, enormous amounts of wind and solar resources. The cost of that is much higher than fossil-based resources. The other challenge it has is it's intermittent. The old line that the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine, and you want electricity 24/7.
Is it possible? That leads to the next question: Is this doable? I mean, we're looking for a massive cut in the primary electric source we have in the nation, this stable, domestic, we don't care about the Middle East source. We're going to change this. Is it feasible? I mean,
well, the best line I've heard about that, John, comes from a fellow who works for a utility, and what he said is he can meet the requirements of the mandate as long as you don't care about cost or reliability. And that is some of the real challenge here, which is how much is this going to cost? How many places is this going to dislocate? How many businesses leave? Businesses, as you know, are very price sensitive to electricity, particularly manufacturing. And manufacturing flees to the least cost power. I was down in Oklahoma a few years ago where they were doing a miniature version of fuel switching down there.
Fuel switching being?
Fuel switching from coal to natural gas, right, sorry. The manager of a cement plant got up, testified to the Oklahoma Corporation Commission and said, if you raise my rates 10%, I leave, I'm gone. The production goes to Mexico. And those are the challenges that the Clean Power Plan is going to bring to American industry. Industry generally lines up against it, although there are certainly some green energy that doesn't and who stands to benefit. Customers low income are going to have challenges under it.
What is the cost difference? I mean, give me something here, because I keep hearing, we've got this mandate here in Colorado. We seem to be making it. Prices are going up. There are a lot of hidden prices that are happening. We're throwing a lot of corporate welfare at wind and solar, but it feels good. What is the real cost? Well, go to 2030. What's my electric bill?
Well, it's a really tough question to answer, right? Because there are so many puts and takes now in this rule, and it's so opaque. There are going to be winners and losers, and they're not going to be evenly distributed. So, for instance, look in Colorado. We have a major generation and transmission co-op, Tri-State, that is very coal dependent. We have municipal utilities in Fort Collins, Loveland, Longmont, and Colorado Springs that are very coal dependent. If they have to shut down their coal plants, those customers served by them are going to face very high electric increases. Xcel Energy is in slightly better situation, but it's not in a perfect situation. Black Hills Energy down in Pueblo also is probably in the best situation because they're largely gas-based.
Governor Hick says, I think we should do this. The president's plan is solid, which really surprised me. I thought that a Western governor would say, you know what, this is a state issue, and we've got one of the highest mandates in the country. Let us do it. Where does that leave us? Does that mean that the Washington regulations come through and our state administrators are just going to go right along? I mean, the Wall Street Journal has says, do not comply with this. They said it's a violation of the Constitution. States do not comply. And our governor stood up and said, we're going to comply.
Well, and no one fully understands the rule yet, and I think the governor may take pause once he sees what little gifts are in here and aren't. A number of states are going to sue on the rule. A number of states will probably not comply at all and force the federal government to impose what's called a federal implementation plan on them. The political fight over this is really just beginning, and how Colorado reacts is, I'm not sure it quite knows yet, because one of the things we're going to have to do in Colorado is change our state laws to comply with it. 10
seconds left. Advice to the state. Do we comply with this? If you were the governor, what would you do?
If I was the governor, I would join the legal challenge and fight this to the end.
We're going to find out. Thank you. Thank you. Listen for me on KHOW Radio. Tell a friend, and we'll see you next week.